Hello, and welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown. I am your host, Mike Hommel.
And I'm your other host, Solely Hommel.
And we're going to take you through 31 scary movies through the month of October, like we do every year. But for the first time this year, we're going to do it entirely in audio format. We like to mix it up every year. One thing you need to be aware of is that we will be employing a truly ghoulish number of spoilers throughout all of these reviews. So if you haven't seen the movie we're reviewing, maybe don't listen to our podcast until you do. We highly recommend you check them out and watch along with us. It's going to be fun for everybody. I mean, how could it not be? So if you're ready and you've watched the movie, please step inside our lair and let's begin. The Stepfather is a 1987 horror thriller, rated R. We watched it on Amazon. It is 89 minutes long. On IMDb, it's got a 6.8 score, and the Rotten Tomato critics give it an 86, so higher, and the Rotten Tomato audience gave it a 65, so same as IMDb, basically. In short, it is, just as it sounds, the story of a guy who marries a woman and murders the whole family. And that's not really a spoiler because he does that in the first shot.
He does that before the first line of the movie.
Oh, that's right, he does. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what he does. He's a serial killer. So, how does that play out? And more importantly, Solely, why did you pick this movie?
Well, I'm a really big fan of the thriller movies, as we have discussed in the past. And this looked like it was going to have some suspense, some, ooh, what's going on sort of moments. And I am also kind of steering myself towards older, not necessarily classic, because I don't know that you could call this movie a classic.
I'd never heard of it before.
But it sort of is a classic kind of 80s horror movie. So yeah. I think all of those things combined to make me want to watch this one.
All right. Yeah, this actually is way back, 1987.
Yeah. Back when John Locke from Lost was real young.
Our star, the Stepfather, is John Locke from Lost. Yeah.
What is his actual name?
Terry O'Quinn.
Terry O'Quinn. I have to ask that because you are the one who keeps track of that information. Yeah. I just remember them as that guy from that movie.
Yeah, I'm the keeper of names.
Yes.
So, what's the first line and first shot of this movie?
This was one of the more interesting of the first line, first shots, because the very first shot is a long view of the street in autumn. There's a kid biking, throwing out newspapers, and we're just looking down this very kind of generic suburban street. Lots of leaves. Like, it's so autumn that the leaves are coming down like rain. Mm-hmm. Like, it was very clear someone was just throwing leaves in front of the camera. And then we watch, like, the whole prologue of the movie.
Yeah. Where
the main character is, Jerry, is shaving and taking a shower and, like, completely changes his look, and then walks down the stairs up to his front door past his whole family who we have murdered. Like, we know he's done something terrible because there's blood all over him before he showers.
Yeah.
But then we see that, like, the whole, like, downstairs of the house is destroyed and there are bodies everywhere. And he just saunters out the front door and down this street that we saw in the first shot, gets on a ferry. Like, all of this stuff is happening, and we're still waiting for the first line. Then we get to 1 year later, another...
So we waited a year.
We did. We waited a whole year. Another fall street in suburbia with a girl riding a bike. She gets to the house. Finally, we hear the first line when somebody throws leaves at her, and she says... Mother!
So who could it be that threw leaves at her?
Oh, yeah, it was her mom.
Oh. That was a spoiler.
So at that point, we're meeting his new family, because year in, he's already remarried and has this, 16-year-old stepdaughter.
Yeah, he is a smooth operator, apparently.
No kidding.
I don't know.
Yeah, so that first line came 6 minutes and 43 seconds into the review. Just FYI.
Yeah, that's something.
So the whole idea is essentially that there's this stepfather-stepdaughter dynamic where she doesn't like him, and everyone assumes that it's because he's not her father, right? Like, her dad died, and you can't replace my dad sort of things. Everybody kind of assumes that she's just being a cranky teenager, and he gives us off this aura of the perfect
I don't understand that, because he didn't. Like, his wife was all, oh, he's so great, while he's going, I guess, whatever. Like, he's not great.
It was the 80s. You have to remember
that's what
80s.
they were into.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was definitely one of those kind of very 80s, like the perfect family sort of situation where, he went out and worked and she made the perfect turkey dinner, and they had their daughter who went to school, and she was messing everything up by getting in trouble.
She was horrible.
Yeah.
That was not normal bad behavior. She was like a vicious battle maiden. She was going to war against all the other kids.
She was, pretty hardcore. But he definitely said the right things in front of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was sort of this classic situation, and I really felt bad for her that she was in this situation where she knew what was going on. Like, she didn't know, but she was right, and we knew she was right, and everyone's disregarding what she's saying, and I'm like, oh, you're all idiots. Just listen to her.
Yeah, it's funny because the first shot of the movie, well, not the first shot, but the first couple seconds of the movie reveals, that he's a murderer, which is kind of going against the plan of, like suspense and whatever, except the movie's called The Stepfather, so I guess it wasn't going to be a problem.
Right, it was not like it was a secret. And really the suspense in this movie was, when will they all finally figure it out?
Yeah.
How many people are going to die before they figure it out?
Yeah, and that turned out not to be that many. I thought he was going to kill her boyfriend. I thought he was going to kill, I don't know, somebody else. He really only killed the one guy, I think.
Yeah, the doctor bit it, and I don't know, I thought he was clever. I thought he was this is the second psychologist or counselor in a movie this month where I've been like, oh, that guy seems like he really gets kids and understands them and is really helpful. And it turns out in this one he really was. And he tried to be sneaky and catch. He was trying to support this girl, and he did believe her. And he lost his life for it.
I had a problem with his plan just because he is the school counselor. And so, let's say he pulled off his little plan. He went and pretended to buy a house, or pretended to look at a house that the stepfather was selling. And he made up a name, he made up a job, and he's like, okay, that's who I am. And, so I'm not interested in this house, bye, we'll part ways. Now I've seen the stepfather, I've learned about him, now I can talk to the daughter about it. But prior to that, he had been trying to get the dad on the phone, trying to interact with him. Eventually, at some point, they would have gotten together, and he would have been like, well, I'm glad we had this talk. And he'd be like, wait a minute, you're the guy who said he was somebody else trying to buy a house from me. Like, that's a really bad situation.
Yeah.
If there's no serial killers involved, it's just really
it's awkward,
super awkward.
For sure. But I think he had pretty much decided that this guy was not going to. Okay, so there was a part on the phone, right? The wife answers the phone upstairs, and she's standing at the top of the stairs with the old rotary on a spiral cord phone, which did not have a mute button like phones these days do.
That's true.
And she's yelling down the stairs, Jerry, Dr. whatever his name
Bondurant
wants to talk to you, and Jerry's yelling back up the stairs, tell him I'm not here.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is happening. Well, and if he calls back, tell him I'm still not here. Like, the whole thing is happening while Dr. Bondurant is listening to it.
But
So he knew.
Little interaction makes my point. Like, why did this wife think he was so great? Like, he's not great. He's like, tell him I'm not here. Like, she's like, why don't you want to talk to the counselor? That's a little weird. Like, she was on drugs. In fact, just to get this out of the way, this whole movie super reminded me of the Buffy episode where John Ritter was a robot who married a woman and was terrible to her. And he was drugging her, and that's why she was into him. It wasn't
a woman, it was Joyce.
Oh, well, yeah, but she wasn't the first. But yeah,
no,
it was
but
Joyce.
the episode was about how he was trying to
Right, I totally
move in on
forgot
Joyce,
that.
which
But
is
yeah.
why Buffy was so mad.
And it's funny because Buffy never ate anything. He was a great chef, which meant he put drugs in all the food, and everybody who ate them really liked him. So that's kind of what was missing here. That would have explained it, although that's a ridiculous device. I'm glad they didn't do that. But he was so unpleasant that she needed to be on drugs to be into him. It was weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he wasn't that far off from a lot of the stereotypical breadwinner,
Yeah.
middle America kinds of characters that I saw on TV in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
well, I think he was, but I don't know. I just had such a problem when he moved on and tried to find a new wife. He just walks up to this woman and is like, "Hey there." And she was going for it. Like, I mean, they didn't go out on a date or anything, but she was clearly accepting him as a decent person. Like, even though he was, I don't know, he's very off-putting.
Yes. Now, part of me wonders, because, like, when I read a book that has guy characters where things always work out that way for them,
Yeah.
and women characters who always just are like, okay, you're the best. Oh, exactly what you're trying to portray is what I think you are.
Yeah.
That always comes across as something that was written by a man to me.
That makes sense.
Because I think a woman might have had more of a perspective, even in the 80s, of saying, like, yeah, you know what? The guy who moves in next door and comes over and starts chatting me up, like, it's gonna take a couple of times before I decide he's an okay guy, because guys can be dangerous.
Yeah, you can be friendly with him, but you don't just immediately feel like, this might be my next husband.
Right. I think it was sort of the point, or I think the point sort of was that he was that charismatic, though.
Yeah, he had to be, because his whole operation was every year or so he would move on and find a new woman and kill her and her family. That was just so weird, like, that these recently widowed women... Widowed? Widowered?
Sure.
These recently widowered women would just, like...
No, it's widowed.
Okay. Within a year... I mean, sure, people move on within a year. It happens, but how does it keep working out for him?
Yeah, the math... Like, I didn't overthink it too much until the end when he's, like, getting ready to move on to somebody else. And I went back and started thinking about the family that he was with during this movie. And I'm like, at the 1 year later point, he's already married to this woman, who we know her husband died a year ago, because the daughter says that at one point. Like, my dad only died a year ago. So in the course of a year, he met her and ended up married to her. That seems pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Pretty quick to me.
That can happen, but as a continuous chain of that happening, that's a little crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I noticed in this movie was there were a lot of Chekhov's items.
Yes.
So
you can check them all off.
I always seem to notice the Chekhov's gun kinds of things where, the gun shows up in the first act, you better shoot somebody with it in the third act. So in this movie, and it's something about the way it's portrayed. Like, it's the the gun sitting on the counter and then the camera like zooms into it at the end of a conversation or something. Like, that's how you know. Well, so there were those, like, pay attention to this moments about Chekhov's screen door.
I wrote that down.
Chekhov's table saw.
Yeah, of course, none of these got used.
And Chekhov's chest freezer in the basement. Because she went to get the
still
ice
didn't
cream.
Use.
No,
he
so
didn't use any of those.
All of those things, there was something about the editing or the camera work that made me go, ooh, that's going to play a role later.
Yeah.
And then none of them did, and I was super annoyed.
Yeah, I actually forgot about them by the end, but they definitely failed to come back.
Yep.
Too bad.
So the theme of this movie was the perfect family.
Speaking of that phone conversation with the doctor,
Yeah.
I kept being confused and disturbed by that. He's downstairs, banging on things, smashing on things, not yelling exactly, but raising his voice, going, I'm a good boy, or whatever. He was saying weird things because he's crazy.
Let's have a little order around here.
Yeah, stuff like that. That's his favorite line. And he's doing that downstairs. Then she calls down and says, hey, this guy's on the phone. And then what he does is he slightly raises his voice above normal talking and says, hey, tell him I'm not here. And she hears it perfectly. So that means she was hearing all of this stuff he was doing downstairs.
She wasn't. She was a good little wife. She didn't listen to the things she wasn't supposed to listen to.
That is so
Everything
creepy.
would have been fine if not for that meddling kid.
Yeah, kids. They ruin everything.
So do you have any favorite lines from this movie?
My favorite line, there were some pretty funny lines, actually. But one of them was this.
It wasn't until I got in high school I realized horses couldn't talk.
Because he's watching Mr. Ed, and apparently he watched it a lot as a kid, and it was his only experience with horses, I guess.
Yeah, he wasn't a smart boy.
No, but he was a good boy.
But he was a good boy. Yeah, okay, that's another thing that why was she not suspicious of the fact that he flat out refused to talk about his past? In fact, went so far as to say, I didn't exist until I met you, which was actually true.
Well, yeah, that was true.
I mean...
But, yeah, he definitely alludes repeatedly to having a really bad childhood, which makes sense. That's all cool. But he never talks about it. We never find out anything about how he was made into the stepfather.
Nope.
It's kind of weird.
So, okay, that was your favorite line.
Yeah, what do you got?
My favorite... There was one line that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to share here because there's a visual component. So, here's the line.
Yeah, just don't let it happen again. You almost gave me a corner. Here.
At which point, he hands the guy a pack of cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. I remember that now.
Which was just
yes.
so something.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell, because it was from the 80s, I couldn't tell if it was like, that's just how they wrote it.
Yeah.
Or if they were trying to be funny. Because right now, that's a hilarious line.
Yeah. That was really funny.
I also liked all of the very foreshadowing lines that the teenage girl had. At one point she says,
I think my time is up. Isn't it?
Huh.
And then she gets in trouble in the science class and gets expelled from school. And she's talking to her friend, and when her friend says, like, what's your stepfather gonna say? And she goes,
he's gonna kill me.
Yeah, I remember that.
So there were some lines that were, like, excessively foreshadowing.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, it's possible that she's his biological daughter. I mean, it doesn't work out mathematically, but I'm just saying her behavior, I can see the connection.
It's the old nature versus nurture question.
Well, yeah, he apparently
Only he
nurtured
wasn't
her
nurturing.
into a nutball.
He was only there for a year.
I know. But that leads me into the thing, which is, it's crazy how this guy who's so out of control and flips at the drop of a hat and every so often has like schizophrenic outbursts, has managed to elude capture and, stay with these women and convince them and stuff. He's not on an even keel.
No, he definitely was not. And I sort of think this was the, showing his downfall, like that was the story. Because it's suggested very strongly that he's done this many times over. Like, that this is his thing. He hangs around for a couple of years or a year.
Until something bothers him.
Right. He was with them at the end. It was once again an autumnal street scene. So, like, he was with them for almost a full year. Like, we saw Thanksgiving, we saw, the summer picnics and whatnot. He was there for a whole year, and then he just couldn't keep it up anymore. But I think it was more than that. I think it was also that he could no longer keep up the hectic changing families every 2 years pace. Like, he was losing it overall.
He seemed like he was losing it, and I liked that part. Like, I liked how it felt like he was falling apart.
Right.
And he was still really dangerous, but he was at the end of his rope, and the police were closing it, the police were closing in. At least the brother of his previous victim was closing in. There was that.
Yeah, who wasn't anything. Like, he was kind of bullying the newspaper guy into helping him, and he was bullying the cops into helping him, but he just was just a brother, right?
Yeah, but that was crazy when he finally did find Jerry, the stepfather, and confronted him. It was over. I mean,
Yeah.
that was disappointing. He spent the whole movie tracking him down and then got killed in half a second.
Yeah.
It's
That
like,
was...
okay.
I was sad for him. Speaking of Jerry falling apart and like not just losing it with this family and not just having the image of a perfect family fall apart, but also his ability to continue this whole process. I really, really liked how, you know, we kind of see him going off to the new city, setting up his new life. Like we can tell like this, oh, it's time. He's transitioning.
Yeah.
And he gets back to the house. And she knows because she's gotten this call, or she tried to call him at work or whatever. So like she's found out in a way that he didn't expect her to. So she calls him out on lying, and that was the best breaking point because he snaps something about a name to her.
Yeah.
And he uses his next life's name instead of the life he's currently in. And when she's like, "What did you say?" He goes,
Wait a minute. Who am I here?
Yeah.
and that was just awesome. And I thought he played that, like he said it really well.
Yeah, that part
It's
was
a good scene.
He really snapped. He was done at that point.
Oh,
He
yeah.
smacked her very hard.
Yep.
And
Started getting out knives.
Dragging her to the basement. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Threw her
pretty
down
good.
the stairs. Had a knife. We thought the dog was going to get it,
Yeah, hooray.
but the dog was fine, which was amazing. Not like the flirting scenes between these two, I'm showing air quotes, teenagers.
Oh, yeah, the 30-year-old teenagers.
Because that was the worst flirting I've ever seen.
Yeah, but they were boxing with each other.
It was terrible. Every interaction between the two, I was just like, that's not how it goes.
That seemed kind of like something they could have ad-libbed themselves and done fine, but an adult tried to talk to them and be like, so this is what you're gonna do, and they're like, okay, we'll do that.
Right. They're like, oh, you know, you're gonna pretend to box with each other because it's awkward and, you know, you don't want to get too close, but then you aren't. Yeah, we get it. You don't need to tell us. Yeah, so that was super awkward.
This is a suspense movie. I mean, it's a horror movie, I accept. But it's very much a question of suspense because for most of the movie, there's no real action. There's no real killing going on. It's the very beginning of the movie has an extremely brutal, I mean, nothing, you don't see it happen. You just see bodies laying everywhere. And he's washing off all the blood. And that's really brutal and nasty. And by the way, it contains the scariest moment in the movie, which is when he changes his contact lenses.
You don't like
Horrifying moment.
That was the point when you
Unbearable.
decided it was horror, right?
Yes, that alone made it horror.
Yep.
Also featured full frontal male nudity in that scene. Just because he was getting in the shower. Like, they couldn't think of any other way to do that than to completely show everything.
It wasn't even that he was getting in the shower. It was that they had a mirror
Oh, yeah.
so
yeah.
that, like, he had his back to us, but...
They probably
There's
didn't
a
tell
mirror.
him about the mirror. But so that's the really brutal beginning. Then we go along and it's all just suspense. Like, you know, we know there's badness, but it never reaches anything until in the middle there's a little outburst where he murders the doctor. And then it's all suspense again until the very end, which also features more nudity. And he has a really brutal attack on his family there. And so it's like, I don't know where I'm going with that, other than that it's interesting that it's all about the tension. It's just you're just wondering when he's gonna snap and what's gonna happen.
And did you feel that tension was done effectively? Like, did you feel tension, or are you just saying this because, like, it's clear that that's what they were going for?
There was tension, definitely. Like, I mean, he did a good job of trying to act normal in a way that you could tell he was not normal. But it does remind me of what I was trying to get at, which is that this is a R-rated horror movie, and yet almost all of it is nothing hard to watch, nothing severe. It's very PG family drama.
I don't know about that.
Well, whatever.
I mean, except for, yeah, it is, except for those, like, flashes at the beginning and end in the middle.
That's what I'm saying. All the rest of it, other than that, is very PG stuff. But then when it goes to those places, that's hard R. Like, not
Oh, yeah.
only does it have all the violence, but they just throw in nudity,
Yeah.
full frontal nudity, for no reason at all. And it's weird. I wonder if they were pushing for an R rating or something, because, like, that added nothing. That was not necessary. It just happened.
Yeah. Well, and they did get an R rating, so...
Yeah. But
And it wouldn't have been that difficult, I don't think, for them to pull it back to whatever's before R, PG-13.
yeah.
I don't know, maybe there was too much blood at the beginning and end.
Well, and that's what I was thinking, is like you could have this exact same movie at a much more family-friendly rating, and it would still be just as tense and everything. You just wouldn't have the graphic stuff.
Right.
And that'd be fine. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I think that stuff is good to have, but it's weird that it's so unnecessary when...
It's kind of in the no man's land between people who don't want to see any graphic stuff. Like,
Yeah,
three-quarters
they're
of
not
this
gonna
movie would
watch
have
this.
worked, but the other quarter definitely didn't. And then the people who really want to see graphic horror, in which case 3/4 of the movie really isn't going to appeal to them.
Yeah.
This movie really appeals to people like me, where I'm not super into the really gory parts of it, but
Yeah.
I love me some tension.
And that's... I think they did a good job with that. They had very... I just don't understand the concept there. It's interesting
Yeah.
to me that they went so far, but only in little pieces.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the climax of the movie and the final battle between the stepfather and his stepdaughter and his wife.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was good. Like, I liked how it was done, except for at the end. There's a point where the mom is at the bottom of the stairs, rolling around. The daughter's at the top of the stairs, rolling around. And he's on the stairs, halfway between, rolling around. And they're all, each one of them, dragging themselves around by their arms.
Yeah.
And it was, like, so excessive. Like there was only one way for people to be injured, and they've all been injured, so now they all look exactly the same. It was weird to me that they
Interesting.
had all lost the use of their legs, and that's it.
Yeah, you'd think the wife would be worse off than that after her massive injuries, but...
Well, yeah, he threw her all the way down the basement stairs. She had made it all the way up the basement stairs and then around to the bottom of the main staircase.
Yeah, and she was okay.
She was dedicated. She was going to save her daughter. She did it.
No, it's good. And she finally cared about her daughter.
Feel like that's most of what I had to say. I do want to point out some things that I really enjoyed that were just so 80s.
Okay.
So, first, we have the massive Cosmopolitan
Yeah, what
magazine.
was that about?
Like, it's... So, here's the thing. I don't think it was a Cosmo magazine. I think it was a Sears catalog. Because I remember getting Sears catalogs from my grandma.
Yeah.
She would send them at Christmas time, and we would put our names next to the things that we liked, and
That's
you know,
fun.
and they were huge. They were, you know, phone book sized. And I don't remember Cosmopolitan magazines or any magazines for that matter
No.
being the size of phone books.
It was a monster, and I don't understand why. It was very
No.
strange.
That would have required that they mocked up this magazine instead of just going and getting an issue of Cosmopolitan, which I'm pretty sure still exists.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
they could have gotten
then,
an
for sure.
87, an issue from 87, I'm sure of it. So that was one thing. The second thing is that there were two separate people in this movie who wore Freddy Krueger style sweaters.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like that black and red stripe thing. Apparently that was really, really popular back in the day.
I think it was the same sweater, and the dressing people just handed it around.
Perhaps. I don't know. I thought maybe the stripes were a little bit different, but it is very possible that they were the same sweater. Which would be maybe okay with some types of clothing, but these are some really bold black and red stripes.
Yeah, it was noticeable.
Yeah. And then the third thing that I noticed, the daughter, she's working on her bike in the garage, and she's wearing a Walkman around her waist, around her neck on a lanyard, and I loved it because it totally made me feel... I very much related to this teenage girl. Like, a lot of the clothes that
Yes.
she wore, I was like, I think I had that sweater when I was 12. And that whole, having a Walkman and the like terrible headphones with
they were bad.
Really, really bad like not styrofoam, like foamy coverings.
Yeah.
I viscerally remember that.
Yeah, I think I owned a Walkman, but I didn't go around listening to it. I had a boombox and I was into.
Did you carry it on your shoulder like John Cusack style?
No, because we never had batteries, so I would just plug it into the wall.
Yeah.
It's always hard to find batteries,
Well, and it's like D batteries.
Yeah,
and
big
you need
D
like
batteries.
14 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
But I did like it a lot.
Yeah. I had the Walkman for just like the briefest of time, and then the Discman came out because I was a child of the CD era.
Yeah, I had that, that boombox, two dual tape decks, so I would record things from one tape to another, or I'd record the radio.
Oh yeah,
I was doing it.
Oh yeah, recording the radio and missing the very beginning of all the songs.
Yes,
uh-huh.
Or catching the very beginning with the DJ talking over it. Either way.
Yeah. Good times, man.
That's how it used to be.
Good times.
Back when we were getting murdered by our stepfathers.
So, the final thing I want to talk about is the fact that he clearly, spoilers folks, is very dead at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Very dead. Very,
Quite
very,
dead.
very dead. Okay? No question about it. And there are 2 sequels to this movie, the first one of which stars the same guy.
And the second one of which stars somebody else, but he's playing the same character after plastic surgery. So, yeah, I think he got better.
He got better. Yeah, that is just kind of mind-boggling to me. It makes me think that the movie did better than they thought it would.
Well, it looks like it was a hit I didn't really get any real info, but just from the things I've seen, It kind of looks like it was popular at the time, which is weird because I don't remember hearing about it ever. So,
no, I don't
know.
either. But in the 80s, I was not watching a lot of horror films, especially not rated R ones.
Yeah, well, I suppose I wasn't really either. I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, if you watched this one and you are really excited about Jerry coming back to life, Stepfather 2 and Stepfather 3 are out there. Ratings. So I believe that I rated first last time.
That sounds very wrong.
I honestly don't know. But you're going to rate first this time. So what are you going to give The Stepfather?
I would say about this movie, I'm going to dive into our patented out of 5 rating system.
Indeed.
To come up with a number, which is a 3 out of 5. Because I feel like, I don't have a good explanation. It was kind of well done. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It was kind of well done, but it was also, it was like, not great, not super exciting, kind of cheesy, but of course it was from the 80s. So, I don't know. It was okay. It's a 3 out of 5. Not a 2.5 out of 5, which is my middle of the road number.
So it's above average to you.
It's a 3 out of 5. That's all I can say about that.
Okay.
And you? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I have to say, it's actually 3 out of 5 very tall birdhouses.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I liked this movie more than you did. I think
it's up your alley.
It very much appealed to me. I mean, I will totally agree with the cheese ball factor. I even liked the cheese ball factor. Like, it just kind of rang true for me in a lot of ways that is kind of amusing to me because I'm surprised at how much I liked it. I am going to give it 4 out of 5 very tall birdhouses.
Wow. All right.
So that's that. That's The Stepfather. And we're going to go watch us another movie so we can talk again tomorrow.
All right.
Well, I'm going to get out of here and go start working on my secondary persona.
Oh, please don't. Tell Mom not here. Like,